Somewhere in between B.B. King and Jimi Hendrix falls the guitar playing of Robin Trower. He has been compared to both, but really sounds nothing like either of them. He just sounds like, well, Robin Trower. Maybe he shouldn't be compared to anyone, but in all honesty, he should rate right up there with them as one of the guitar greats of all times as far as I'm concerned. Guitar players, of course, are influenced by other players when they're starting out, trying to find themselves. Some never do, and are always trying to cover and copy. They just never evolve. If you listen to the music Robin Trower makes today, you are listening to almost 60 years of the evolution of a guitar player. His latest album, No More Worlds to Conquer, is loaded. When the music business started to change and tell the artists what to play that would sell, Robin Trower turned his back on all of that. He kept putting out albums, of course, and great music, even if it didn't fit the trend the record companies wanted, or what the radio stations or MTV would play. And for that, he lost out on a lot of fame and fortune, but in turn kept giving us this great music to listen to. And all of us who has followed him and his career should be thankful. So let's take a little time here and look back on Robin Trower. Robin Trower was born in Catford, London, England in 1945 and grew up in Southend-on-the-Sea, Essex. Growing up, he says that Elvis played a guitar and this got him interested, and that Elvis's guitar player at the time, Scotty Moore, is the sound that really got him going. As he got older and started to become more influenced and serious, he gives black music credit, naming specifically B.B. King, Jimi Hendrix, James Brown, and Muddy Waters, but admits the list is very long. In 1962, Robin says he formed the band that became the Paramounts. He said there was a group of older players he admired called the Rockefellers, and he wanted to put a group together to prove the same. Of course, all the other members of the group has a different story how the Paramounts came to be. I'm just giving you Robin's side of it. Later, Robin had felt that the group had gone about as far as they could and decided to leave the Paramounts. He was getting more and more into the blues side of rock and roll and wanted to start a blues-based band of his own, which he did. The Paramounts stopped around this time and regrouped as Procol Harum and was soon to record the hit song, Whiter Shade of Pale. Procol Harum was formed by former Paramounts pianist and vocalist Gary Brooker and his songwriting partner Keith Reed, who enlisted Ray Royer, David Knight, Matthew Fisher, and Bobby Harrison for the group's initial incarnation. For the recording of the band's debut single, A Whiter Shade of Pale, the producer brought in a session drummer in place of Bobby Harrison. Shortly after the single was released, guitarist Ray Royer and drummer Harrison left the group to form the band Freedom. Brooker called up former Paramounts bandmate Robin Trower and drummer B.J. Wilson, asking them to join the group, both agreeing. Robin has fond memories of his time in Procol Harum. He said they had a great time touring and discovering America. He believes that the band's touring of America really opened the door for him to later on start his own solo career in America. He feels the two best albums he recorded on while with the group was Salty Dog and Broken Barricades, the latter being his final album while with the group. He does feel that Whiter Shade of Pale was the best song the group ever recorded, one which he didn't play on. Procol Harum was of a keyboard-driven band, although he was getting his fair share of playing and songwriting work with the group. Robin needed a bit more out of his playing and songwriting. So in 1971, he quit the group to start working on a solo career, saying this much later on in life. I started to realize that I was coming up with a lot more ideas than Procol had room for, so I was driven to go forward into my own thing. I guess my favorite Procol Harum album had to be Broken Barricades. Listening to this album, you can hear Robin really starting to come into his own. I think the timing was right for him to move on and go solo. It's easy to say that now in hindsight, and back when I first heard it, I'm sure I, like others, had no clue. But Robin sure did. and there's no doubt that it was the right choice for him. Although it didn't really work out as planned, the first group he put together was one called Jude. He had a singer-songwriter, Frankie Miller, ex-Jethro Tull drummer Clive Bunker, and a friend of Frankie Miller's to handle the bass was James Dewar. But the band just didn't work out. Robin says and shrugs, "It was a good lineup. It should have worked better than it did. You just never know." Things would get better. One good thing to come out of the band Jude was Robin meeting and getting to know James Dewar. Besides being a great bassist, he was also a very talented vocalist, and Robin really liked him personally. He called him an absolute sweetheart. So Trower and Dewar started working together and brought in drummer Reg Isidore, a West Indian-born Londoner, and started rehearsing as a trio. Robin, who was living in his hometown, Southend-on-the-Sea, would pick up Dewar from his place and then drive over to a little rehearsal room in South London where they would meet Isidore. They started working on original songs, mostly written by Trower and Dewar, but they had no label or backing. Robin's time in Procol Harum would help them out. Robin managed to secure some financial backing from Ronnie Lyons, who Robin said was an American guy who was originally Procol's tour manager, who was interested in helping me get going as a solo artist. So Lyons paid for them a recording session at Olympic Studios in London, with former Procol bandmate Matthew Fisher producing. The trio recorded 5 songs which would become the basis of that first album and be named Twice Removed from Yesterday. Robin took the songs to Chrysalis Records, Procol Harum's label. Doug D'Arcy, the managing director at the time, said that on the strength of my name with Procol, they could make money out of me going solo. So the deal was signed and no band name needed. It would just be Robin Trower. In March 1973, the album Twice Removed from Yesterday was released. Although it made little headway early in the UK, it quickly made an impression over in America. Robin says, "We did a club tour of America pretty straight away. But what really helped was Chrysalis let us go out and support their big acts, Jethro Tull, 10 Years After, and King Crimson. As well as gaining exposure from playing second on the bill at these big arena shows, Trower benefited from a sound that was perfect for the album-oriented rock playlist of American radio at that time." The next album, Bridge of Sighs, reached number 7 in the United States during a chart stay of 31 weeks. It was certified gold on September 10, 1974. 6 of the 8 tracks on the album were credited to Robin himself, and the other 2 tracks to Robin and James Dewar together. This album and the next, For Earth Below, was probably the pinnacle of Robin Trower's commercial success in America. Even though he would record many more albums, which some are considered better or just as good, the powers that be in the music business started deciding what type of music would sell best, and many players and bands changed their style to ride on that money train. But not Robin Trower, and there are many good reasons for that, which we are going to get into that some right now, along with a few bits of information you might not have known. My thoughts here, and maybe it isn't a good comparison, but Robin's musical career in the late 70s to early 80s kind of reminds me of Johnny Winter. Johnny had a pretty good chance of being a headliner out in the rock and roll world, but he stuck to the music he loved. Robin did the same. He wouldn't conform. And to be honest, I really don't think he had any regrets. I know late in his career, Johnny Winter said he had none and was happy with his accomplishments. Like I said, maybe not a good comparison, but it's one that I thought of. If you have one, please feel free to drop by the comments section to sound off. Either way, Robin stayed true to the music styles he loved and felt. Here's something that Robin said back in the 80s, which I pretty much think sums up his feelings about the music at that time. He said, In the 60s, musicians just wanted to make music because they liked making music. But in the 80s, the kids just wanted to be rock stars. Now, he didn't say this bitterly, just kind of matter of fact. While with Procol Harum, Robin and Keith Reed wrote Song for a Dreamer as a tribute to Jimi Hendrix, which of course is one player Robin has been compared to over the years. He only saw Jimi Hendrix perform live one time, and that was Jimi's last concert in Germany. Robin was really captivated by what he saw and heard from Hendrix that day. It inspired the song. One thing he said about Hendrix that was unexpected was that in the beginning he didn't really care for any of Jimi's albums after the first one. But when he decided to do that tribute song, he listened to some of the later recordings closer to try and get a better feel for the music, and found some of the tracks a bit more interesting. But he did say even after that, there was still some things that, as he put it, didn't catch him at all. Robin says Song for a Dreamer was a turning point for him, as it really gave him the self-confidence to keep moving forward with his songwriting. Robin's work with bass player Jack Bruce was something I always enjoyed listening to, especially the first album BLT with him, Bruce, and Bill Lorden on drums. But oddly, Robin didn't care for the way the tracks came out. I've not found out exactly why, but he said he wasn't happy with it. They did a second album called Truce and switched drummers using Reg Isidore. Reg and Bill Lorden both worked with Robin on his solo albums and touring. But that was it from Robin and Jack Bruce until many years later when Bruce got in touch with Robin and they did the Seven Moons album along with some live shows. There's a video of one of those shows on YouTube. I'm going to put a link in the description. It's well worth watching. Robin married his wife Andrea in 1968, and they were together until her death in 2014. He had this to say about marriage. I think people first starting out at marriage these days don't work quite as hard. As soon as things get difficult, they're out. Today it's all about instant gratification. There's a little bit too much of me and not enough of everyone else. When speaking about music, you'll always hear him use the word soulfulness. He considers the original Think by James Brown, Still a Fool by Muddy Waters, and Machine Gun by Jimi Hendrix as powerful pieces of music. They opened my mind up to a different place, Robin said. Robin has been playing and creating music for over 60 years. He just turned 78 years old and still sounds as good as ever. His latest album, titled No More Worlds to Conquer, made me think, is this it? I doubt it. Robin is more than just a guitar player. He's an artist. He paints pictures with his guitar for our ears to enjoy. This latest album is just a pleasure to listen to. All of his music is available on his website, robintrower.com. He has recorded so many great albums over the years. Drop by and pick one up. You know, there's only a handful of these legendary guitar players left. You could talk forever about a guy like Robin Trower, but I can't do that. So anything I left out that needs to be said, feel free to add your thoughts in the comments section. Appreciate y'all for watching. If you haven't subscribed, I hope you do. And if you do, ring that notification bell and hit the like button on your way out. Y'all take care and have a great day. Thanks so much for your support.